Hey everybody, Marcos Villegas here, being joined with the head of Showtime Sports, Mr. Steven Espinoza. Steven, the year's over. 2017 is in the books. We're going into 2018. How would you, if you could review it, grade it, how was 2017 in your eyes, not only for your network, but just overall the landscape of boxing?
Look, personally, I think it's one of the strongest years I can remember. But really, I put more weight in the opinion of guys who are more experienced and more knowledgeable than me. I mean, guys like Al Bernstein. So when he says to me, this is one of the best years, if not the best year at Showtime that he can recall, and he's been here a lifetime. That says a lot to me. If I had to give it a grade, I'd give it an A-, only because there was one big fight that came really close that we didn't get, and that was Wilder versus Ortiz. But other than that, I wouldn't have changed anything else. Look, even fights that that were high level, but we didn't know how they'd work out, like DeGale versus Jack. Unification, big fight. Didn't know how their styles would mesh. That turned out to be a Fight of the Year candidate. So everything worked from early on. We got fireworks with Mikey and Dejan. We got Broner and Granados in a war. Everything really clicked really well, and we did the right fights at the right time, and they turned out really well.
In terms of moving forward to 2018, what can we take from this year and build it into 2018 so you guys, and just boxing in general, has an even bigger year, you feel? What needs to be done, and what fights, more in particular, need to happen for that to happen?
Well, I think the key is doing good fights. It's not just to get more networks involved. It is doing good fights. And I think what everyone saw, from fighters to promoters to networks, when you do big fights, everything works out. There are no losers. And that was proven. When you do the right fight, everything becomes bigger and everybody wins. We don't have the luxury of doing a series of mediocre fights. There's too much competition. There's too many things for other people to be watching or to be doing. So we've got to consistently do the right fights at the right time, without delay, without a lot of politics. And when that happens, it's tough to beat the sport of boxing.
Speaking of big fights, can you list a few that are going to come up in this next year for us?
Well, look, I'm really excited about Spence Peterson. I think that has all the hallmarks of a real war between the two of them. I think people will probably underrate and underestimate Sergey Lipinets, but he's an action fighter. He comes ahead, and he's never in a dull fight. It's a cliche, but he really goes 100 miles an hour, from the opening bell. I think everyone has got their fingers crossed to see that Wilder Joshua happens in 2018. I think the chances of that are really good. And I think that's probably the most anticipated fight in the sport right now. We'll see Keith Thurman come back. We'll see Danny Garcia come back. And we've got young guys like, Tank Davis and David Benavidez, who won their first title in 2017. I think you'll see more regularly in 2018.
For that Wilder fight to happen, he has to face another gentleman in Luis Ortiz. When do you think we'll see that happening?
I think Wilder has some unfinished business. He was really, really disappointed. It's the third time it's happened to him. It's the second time a big career-defining fight has been taken away from him. So I know he's trying to get that fight back as quickly as possible, maybe as soon as the first quarter of 2018.
You think no later than potentially April?
I'd say no later than April, May.
Mm-hmm. All right. Steven, another thing that's happening in the world of combat sports in general, on the success of the Mayweather-McGregor fight, which did about 4.4 million pay-per-view buys, hugely successful event. But now we're seeing Dana showing interest in entering into boxing. What do you make of that?
I think I think it's an interesting move. Dana's always been a fan. He hasn't always spoken positively of the sport, but he's been involved in the sport for 20 plus years in some way or the other. I think what they saw firsthand and got a reminder of is how big boxing can be, and how passionate the audience is, how diverse, how young the audience is, and anyone who who experienced any piece of Mayweather McGregor and didn't walk away saying, look, there's a very passionate boxing base in the U.S., it would really be missing the boat. So I'd welcome him to the sport, just so I welcome anybody in who is, got the best intentions of doing good fights. If he wants to do good fights and develop the sport, and he's willing to work with other people, then, welcome in, happy to have him.
So I know with the promotion, you guys did work together. There was a bit of tension at times during the build-up and even after. So I was wondering, too, as well, if there's a little bit of hesitation or abrasiveness because of what happened in the past. Or do you think, it's a new page, new year, let's go ahead and do it?
Look, at the end of it, it's one of those things, it's sort of like, you're making the sausage, and sometimes, I might rub somebody the wrong way or vice versa. It happens under when you're working in stressful situations and on big time events. So the reality, I don't take away anything from that experience other than we were able to come together in a very short amount of time and do a huge historic event. There are some conflicts in the, here and there. That's not going to stand in the way of me pursuing any business opportunity.
And on a final note, the Rigondeaux-Lomachenko fight. It's been a lot of talk, not the fight that we wanted to see in terms of competitiveness, but what'd you make of what turned out in Lomachenko? Because you have a guy in Mikey Garcia that many fans want to see Lomachenko fight.
Right. Well, what it says to me, it sort of reinforced the fact when you have somebody who's a super skilled guy, like Mikey, like Lomachenko, like a lot of the fighters that we have, and you put him in with somebody who is, a little diminished or out of their weight class or inactive, a small difference becomes a huge difference right away. So what it demonstrated to me is the importance of matchmaking when you have somebody who's really skilled. When you have a Mikey, when you have a Lomachenko, if you match him with somebody who's been inactive and from 2 weight classes lower, it's not going to go well. It's not going to be a competitive fight, and it wasn't. And I don't blame Rigondeaux at all for that. I mean, the reality is, look, I know people wanted him to go out on his shield. Look, it was very clear from the first 30 seconds of the fight exactly how that was going to go, and there was really no point in continuing it. For a beating, like there was. It wasn't a competitive fight. So it just shows me once again, when you've got somebody who's really skilled, you have to take extra care in matchmaking them to make it a competitive fight. Otherwise, it just turns out to be a letdown like that fight was.
Conor, if he does a boxing fight, is he obligated to you guys?
He isn't obligated.
But there's a preference there, I would say, because you guys did business, right?
I mean, we did business and we did well. For whatever the differences were, we did well. And, we learned a lot about each other and about our business models. I think it would go even better the next time. So, look, if there was another, big boxing match and there was demand for it, we'd be happy to be involved.
They say Pacquiao. I don't know how likely, but Pacquiao's in the running now.
It's a fight. It would be a fight.
It would do big business. Anything with Conor does big business.
It does, but you know what? He's got a lot of unfinished business, in the UFC as well. He's got a title there that he's never defended. He's got guys, clamoring to fight him. He's got a lot of demands there, and so it wouldn't surprise me if he was back in UFC for the foreseeable future. Maybe a little bit down the road, you might see him in the boxing ring again
with Paulie.
I don't know about Paulie.
There's drama there. There's heat there. You could sell that. That would do. I'm telling you right now, I would spend $100 on a pay-per-view for that fight because I know what happened in the build-up to the other fight. And I'm a cheap bastard, guys. I'm a cheap bastard. I would spend $100 for that.
Well, the reality that the most organic fights, the natural fights, the biggest promotions are the ones where there is a natural storyline. And that's real history. You don't have to invent anything. There's drama. There's conflict. There's a debate. There's an ongoing tension. All the elements are there, and we know Paulie can get in the ring and hang with anybody. He always has his entire career, so it could be interesting.
Has there been talks?
Not that I'm aware of, but Paulie Paulie has a lot of conversations I'm not aware of, so who knows? He might have gotten on the phone with Conor.
Steven, thank you so much, man. It's great seeing you. Yeah, I know, right? I was gonna say next time I see you,
Sonic the Hedgehog.
I'll give you a Mario one, all right?
All right, okay? I got it. All right.
Steven Espinoza, the head of Showtime Sports here in Los Angeles. Mikey Garcia, Sergey Lipinets happening in 2018 at the Alamo Dome in Texas.